listening to Cooper Talk.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guests. I gotta tell you something, people. The gentleman on my show today, I'm a big fan of. Whether it been with his time with the Babies, his amazing solo career, with Bad English, the guy's just talented, and he's been rock and rolling for a long time. And the song "Missing You" was when I was in college. Every time a person broke up, we heard that from their dorm room, and I played that a few times myself. And my guest is John Waite. How you doing, John?
I'm very well, thanks. How you doing?
I'm good. So I got you live in Santa Monica, right?
I do, yeah.
Now, how are you?
I spent a lot of time in New York City and New York State, but I wound up between tours. A place came up by the sea, and I just bought it. You know, it was like one of those things. And but I miss the East Coast. I miss the weather. I miss the people. But it's nice, you know. I mean, in the winter it's great. In the summer it's like, you know, it's California, but in the winter it's got some character.
Yeah, I lived there for actually 16 or 17 years. I lived in Burbank, and
really?
Yeah,
Whoa.
And when I moved back east, I grew up on the East Coast, but when I got snow again, I was like, oh my God, this is why I moved. But I know the other day I saw you post on Facebook, you were walking in the rain. Now, most people in California go crazy in the rain, but you grew up in England and you spent time on the East Coast, so you're used to the rain.
Yeah, no, I love the rain. It woke me up 2 nights ago, about 3 in the morning. It was I had to get up and shut the window. It was raining in, you know, but it was glorious. And I just laid there for a while listening to it. And but I love weather. You know, I'm being British, being English. I mean, I was raised with the rain and the fog and the wind and the seasons changing and the whole thing. You know, it gives a background to your life. You know, it gives dimension to what's happening.
Now, with the pandemic, I know California is about to go on on lockdown again. How has that affected your creativity? I hear different stories. Some people in the beginning, they were freaked out. Now they're finding themselves more. How have you ridden the wave during this whole pandemic?
Red wine. And a lot of it. I have actually been in the studio, but at first I thought lockdown was going to be one of those great things, like, you know, it was winter, it was February. I just got back off tour. I went to New York City for 10 days, took the train from Penn Station to Chicago, LA, and then everything got canceled and everything was in lockdown. And I thought, well, I've had a pretty rock and roll experience of like the first at least 2 months of the year. I've been busy, you know, and then everything stopped, and I thought, well, this is going to be okay. You know, it's all right. I'll just write a lot, and I read a great deal anyway. But after about a month, it started to, you know, it was just like too much silence, you know. I think people are social animals, and I think when they can't interact with other people, things start going sideways, you know. I mean, I've been like this for 10 months, but it's okay me singing the blues. People have died. And people have lost loved ones. Christmas was crap for kids and families. They couldn't visit each other. And so I don't want to come off like, you know, I can't tour, what a shame for me. You know, touring is like a complete song in itself. That's the high end of life. You know, it's you're performing. But in the real world, people have run out of money. There's a change in government. People are polarized in their views. These are really weird times, and being in lockdown simultaneously is it's a rough deal, you know. So I thought at first I was going to write an album, maybe write a book, not my memoirs, as everybody does, but a novel or something, you know. I thought I'd do that because I like literature a lot. But I didn't. And then in the middle of it all, about 3 months ago, I started to go in the studio in Woodland Hills, my favorite studio, the Doghouse. And I started to record again. And so I've got, you know, I'm just thinking about mixing on Monday. You know, I'm in the middle of releasing something. So in the end, it all turned out okay. But it's just, you know, how do you qualify anything at the moment? I want the world to come through this crap and get on its feet and start walking forward. The last thing I'm worried about is painting my masterpiece. You know, there's higher things going on here.
Well, you're right. I mean, for me, it's funny. Me and my wife celebrated our first wedding anniversary in September, and we had plans to go different places. We ended up driving up to Watkins Glen, New York. But we were thinking, we wanted to fly here, we wanted to fly there, but then we thought, you know what? We both have our jobs. We have a roof over our head. We can get out of town. And you're right. You sit there and we redefine things, and I know I want to talk to you about, I know you met Joe Biden, I know you played a song for him, and the thing about what happened is with this whole pandemic is, what I've learned is, where a lot of us are fighting together, there's also a lot of assholes, and that's the thing.
Yeah, but that's life, If life was the same thing all the way through and people were in harmony, there'd be no life. Everything on the planet is in tension and in contest, with itself. It's the dynamic of life. Everything is trying to kill everything else to live. And in a more sophisticated sense, thinking people see that whatever is the truth subjectively. They just have their own thing. There's, and they're both right. Both sides. That's the amazing thing. Both sides are right. How could they be wrong? It's a human point of view. But it's I think maybe the problem is having two choices in government that are so radically different, when somewhere in the middle is where we'd all like to live.
Well, with government, I know you met Joe Biden in January, and you also wrote a song.
I was jamming. We were waiting for him to come on this fundraiser, and I just made it up. But Joe Kiani, my great friend that was financing this fundraiser for Joe Biden, recorded it, and it somehow got on the internet. But I mean, I was just making it up. But I think I met him, and I think he's a soulful guy. I met him before, about 4 months before that, and he came to Joe Kiani's house. That was another fundraiser, and Joe and Sarah Kiani, they support the Democrats, and there's always fundraisers going. I'm a big friend of both of them, But Biden spoke to a room full of people, and he explained why he was running. He didn't want to run. He was the only choice in the country, that could possibly win. And he's an elderly guy now, and he doesn't really want to be doing what he's doing. He's doing it because he loves the country. And he was speaking in this room, which is a huge room because it's a big mansion, it's a fundraiser. And as I was watching him speak, and it was very moving because he was talking about the idea of America being from all different components, from all over the world, coming together for this thing. And that it was an idea. It wasn't like Germany. It wasn't like Britain or Scotland or Wales or Ireland or France or Italy or, the separate countries. America was like the American Indians. It was like people came here to escape being stamped on. And unfortunately, mixed up in all that crap was slavery, which has turned around to bite us in the ass in a major way. Anybody with a conscience, you look at that and go, how could you? But, it's been going on for centuries, slavery. But here we are, all together. And that's what America is, And I looked around the room, and everybody in the room was of mixed race. Joe Kiani is Persian. His wife's Persian. Beautiful people. Guy's a billionaire. He's an incredibly intelligent man. He's one of my best friends. And I look around the room, there's Korean people, there's Chinese people, obviously there's Italians, there's Nordic people that are blonde, And I'm looking around the room thinking, and I'm British, and I got Irish in me. And I think, well, that's it. And you vote for that because it's America. It isn't necessarily politics. In a larger sense, it's humanity. If you go to Manhattan, everybody from every walk of life is somehow coexisting with a very cheery sort of like attitude. And, on the East Coast, it's all rough and there's a lot of fighting and stuff. People are aggressive, Irish and the Italians, every year they can fight and cook great pasta, But people get on, And this thing about racism You can't undo what's going on. The world is multiracial. And the world needs to be safe from all the pollution. And if you're going to have kids, what kind of world are you going to leave them? God forbid they have kids. Half the world, the polar cap's melting. There's fires all over the world. There's earthquakes. There's flooding. It's only a couple of years ago, Manhattan got flooded. That New Jersey got wiped out. And people are going like, this is global warming. And meanwhile, the powers that be are saying, nah, forget that. And while we're at it, let's drill on this wetlands and let's build a condo section and let's launch this and pollute that and who cares and let's just get the money. You can't vote for that. If you vote for that, you're insane.
Exactly. It's crazy.
That's all there is. That's all there is. You're insane. If you vote for that and you don't take care of the planet, fuck you. I mean, that's basically it. You're no friend of mine. I don't have many friends that would vote for that kind of system.
It is crazy. As I said, we see how different things change. And you're right, everyone has different views. It's like music. Everyone has different views on music. Like you're from England. When you were growing up, what were your influences in your music? What made you follow this path? I mean, who were you listening to as a young John Waite, and when did you start knowing you could sing?
Oh, man. Cowboy music was very big. Marty Robbins, that was huge for me. It's all like cowboy songs, trail songs, gunfighter ballads and trail songs. Marty Robbins, that album. I'd only hear it on the radio or on TV. I couldn't afford to buy it. But we had no money growing up. I lived in a cottage in the countryside. But Brenda Lee, my cousin Michael was a great musician. He's now in the Temperance 7. I think he's left them. But they were a huge band, a trad jazz band. My brother's a tremendous guitar player. My dad loved classical music. My mum could dance and sing. So there's always music coming in from different sides. But, it was so rare and it was so exotic that every time you heard somebody playing the piano, you drop everything and just go and listen to it. It was like, and there was all these sort of Irish shanties and airs, Scottish, very desperately lonely, crazy, beautiful folk songs. Folk was very big on me when I was a kid. All songs about doomed love and black ravens and just fantastic stuff. And that combined with the Western, the country and Western of country music, the Western part of it, that formed that's how I thought, and I always sang the same way. So I must have been influenced somewhere by the blues as a young kid, But I found myself able to sing from being a child, But I was very shy, didn't want to sing, but I liked it when I did. And right up to becoming the singer in the Babies, I thought of myself as more of a bass player. And when they obviously couldn't find a singer, and I was writing the songs, so hello, there I was. But I had to be pushed into the spotlight because that isn't really what I do, it's like, and I became that.
How did you meet the guys in the Babies? I mean, how bands meet always intrigues me because there's so many different stories, and sometimes it's just like he was my neighbor, sometimes it's like he was in art school, he was, how did you guys meet?
Well, there was a guy called Mike Colby. I'd just come back from America. I'd been over to Cleveland to try and start a band. I was there for like 4 months. It all blew up, and I'd already been in London for a couple of years, and before that I'd been playing around the Northwest. But I'd come back from Cleveland, of all places, great radio, MMI, NEW, and, that was New York. But I mean, all these great stations, and Kid Leo, and I was just sitting around with my girlfriend in Belsize Park. I lived over a sweet shop, and this guy that worked in a guitar store called Gordon on Shaftesbury Avenue, Guitar Village. I'd been friends with him before I'd gone off to America, and he'd heard about this guitar player that wanted to try and find a band to join or find other musicians. And Gordon said, let's go and have a pint, let's go and... So one night we went down to a pub called Sir Richard Steele's on Haverstock Hill, and in walked Mike Corby with his manager, Adrian Miller, and he bought us a pint of beer, Adrian, or two, and we talked about, and I told him about America, and I was a bass player, I could write songs, and yeah, I could sing, you know, I wasn't being coy, I can sing, and Mike could play the guitar, he couldn't write songs, really, you know, but without me, there wasn't much going on, but there's only two of us, because Gordon dropped out of the picture pretty quick. But it was, you know, that was it. And then Adrian, God bless him, was, he you know, give me £5 a week so I could at least eat and pay some of the rent with my girlfriend. And she got a job. And over about a year, we cobbled together some musicians, fell apart. Mike left, came back. Tony Brock came down. Adrian found Tony Brock. And we had all these different people in the band, made all these demos with different configurations. And then Wally showed up, the last guy, to audition for a guitar player. And we had it. I mean, Wally walked in and it was the glue. Up to that point, it was me writing songs, trying to nail it all together, but it was ramshackle. You know, it would lurch this way and it lurched that way, and it wouldn't have any real cohesiveness. But me and Wally both liked Free, and Free was very much based in the blues and those chord changes. And Wally had a great sense of rhythm. He could glue it all together with this great Les Paul sound. And he hadn't really been on tour. I think he'd done a couple of gigs somewhere. But he was untested, but so was Mike. I don't think Mike had ever played anywhere live, you know. And me and Tony Brock had done a lot of work. So there was two guys that really knew the ropes and two guys that really didn't. But when Wally came in, bang! You know, I remember thinking, Jesus Christ. You know, my songs, or what I thought were my songs, you know, come in with, suddenly became this thing. You know, I was back to the Celtic thing, writing these sad, lonely songs, you know, the blues. But once you plug Wally in, it became like something higher, you know. And all credit to the band, but as soon as Wally was there, I knew it was going to be, we were on our way, you know.
Now, how long did it take you guys to get a record deal? And I believe you recorded the first album in Toronto?
Yeah. Well, we were trying to put it all together for about 2 years. And then we went to Toronto and made the album in about a month, 3 weeks, a month, you know.
So you guys start getting popular. What is it like, you know, when you went for that time of getting people, you know, trying to get all the pieces fit, the babies start becoming popular. What is that like for you as you're seeing this plan starting to pay off?
It was unbelievable. I mean, I'd gone from living in this sort of Dickensian version of London, above the sweet shop with a three-story walk-up, you know, with a sweet shop in the bottom, with my girlfriend from Lancaster, and through all this thing about putting the band together, in this rehearsal room down by the Thames, Tooley Street, by London Bridge and Tower Bridge, between those two, I think, and London, you know, London in the early 70s or mid-70s, wow, you know, it's like just seedy, beautiful, dramatic, dangerous, very stiff, conservative, unforgiving, brutal, you know, very middle class in his thinking. And there you are walking around with long hair and an earring and the whole thing, you know, like just got this dream, you know, that you're going to do this other thing. I must have looked like I came from Mars, but I was proud of what I was, you know. But suddenly, you know, we come to America on this promotional tour. We do all these TV shows like, you know, Dinah Shore and Midnight Special and all that stuff, In Concert, Merv Griffin, all these talk shows, do multiple interviews with all the papers. And it took off. And the album wasn't what we really wanted to do. I think the first album was a mess. It actually was a mess.
Why?
Yeah.
No, why was it a mess?
It was a mess. We came back from Canada to be just like, that's it. I was, you know, we were finished. I mean, everybody listened to the record and hated it. It sounded wrong. It was bullshit. And we'd made a mistake. And after all that work, we all thought, all the wives, girlfriends, record company manager, every single person that heard it thought it was crap. And we just like went, Jesus, you know, we trusted the wrong people. And we got a second shot, you know, the second act in America. We got one. And they flew us out to LA. We got apartments, and we made the second record. They had a lot of faith in us, and suddenly, bingo, we had it, you know. And that was it. You know, game on. Whatever was going to happen was going to happen. So we just stepped into it. But it was fantastic. It was, you know, I mean, LA was smaller. Hollywood was smaller. It was the Rainbow Bar and Grill. It was like on the rocks, above the Roxy. They were the only real clubs. There was Gazzari's about 100 feet up, you know. And
the coconut teaser.
Yeah, baby. And there was Granny Takes a Trip, which was my tailor, you know, just down the street from the Whiskey A Go-Go. So it was like, you know, in about 4 blocks was the entire rock community of LA. And it was small, so everybody knew everybody. You'd go to the Rainbow and bump into, like, you know, Steve Marriott or, you know, Ozzy Osbourne or just, you know, it was fantastic. And it was like a clique. It was underground still. It was sexy. It was like, there was Cream magazine coming out, I think, Michigan, and there was Circus, and there was Rolling Stone. And that was basically the rock press, you know. That was it. And so the charts reflected that. There was all this sort of Hollywood Squares kind of like chips, kind of LA, middle of the road, you know, showbiz thing. And then that was like TV. And that was the biggest industry, really. But the bands that were taking off, like the Bee Gees and whatever was big at the time, Led Zeppelin, you know, really huge bands, they were separate. And they coexisted in Hollywood. And it was like two cultures that really didn't know what to do with each other. But it was highly romantic stuff. I mean, it was really, I mean, it's still very, I mean, I've said it before, but Cameron Crowe's movie Almost was the truth of it. How anybody could capture that much truth on film about something so ephemeral is pretty marvelous, you know.
So you're in LA, and you guys you're getting bigger, and you're getting popular, and I'm sure you're touring more.
Oh, doing all the time, yeah.
Who are some of the bands you were touring with?
Journey, Cheap Trick, Styx, REO Speedwagon, and that was it. That was it. And the rest of it was like huge festivals, and or headlining in theaters, or like clubs like it in the Agora chain in Ohio. We would go out and just blow everybody up. We actually got really good real quick. And towards the end of the band, when we expanded to a 5-piece, we were playing the Rose Bowl on a bill with Cheap Trick and Journey and stuff, and blowing it up, you know, really popular stuff. You know, it was like we stepped right into it, you know.
Now, what happened to the Babies? I know you got hurt on stage. Was that one of the reasons things happened, or what happened to the group? Because you guys were doing well, but I hear so many times that groups they've been doing well, but they just get tired of being on the road. And the way the record industries worked back then, you just weren't making the money. And after a while, you started getting pissed off. I mean, what happened with you guys?
Well, you know, I mean, after the album Head First, which was a traumatic album to make, Mike Colby got fired. You know, me and Mike had a fist fight. It was really bad. And it was like, enough, you know. We'll give you a quarter of whatever we make. That was the deal, you know. If we're making any money, you can have your share. But we can't do this with you. And we went to a 5-piece. Jonathan Cain, Ricky Phillips joined the band. I started just being the lead singer, not playing bass. And away we went. But the Head First record was the best record. It was the biggest record. And Every Time I Think of You was on there and Head First. And we hit the road. And man, we were playing like 4 nights, 5 nights a week. And when we weren't on stage with one of these major bands that was touring, we'd be doing headline gigs. Through winter, through summer, no sleep, we'd just be out there doing it. And we'd be, you know, going out in front of Journey's people and just killing. You know, Steve Perry was having kittens. I mean, we had a lot of attention, and we were great. I mean, I'm not joking, man. We'd come out there, and within the first 2 songs, we had everybody on their feet. The place was going nuts. We had all these songs that we had, you know, like Every Time I Think of You, Isn't It Time, Midnight Rendezvous, Back on My Feet Again, Head First. I mean, we'd come out and just kill for 45 minutes. And a lot of bands that we were on the bills with were not happy about it. We were that good, you know. And it was, if you do that again, you're off the tour, and don't ever do that. And you can't sing over there, and you can't use the PA, and you know, don't get on the PA, and you know, I mean, really silly shit. You know, I mean, really childish, nasty. But we threatened a lot of people. We were that good. And but we toured, and then we toured again. And the phone rang one day, and it was like, it's time to go back in the studio. And I said, but we got this hit record. We're back. And the record company were having distribution problems. They couldn't put the records in the stores. They had regional distribution. And it was a problem. You know, we'd go into record stores to look for country records and stuff, and there'd be no Babies records. And at first we thought, wow, we must be selling out. And then we realized they weren't getting the records in the stores. So it was like, the frustration was so enormous towards the end. We'd done so well, and we were so front and center in America. All was just, you know, a foot away from making it huge. And the record company just kept folding, you know, and it said, well, it's time to go back in the studio. And in the end, what are we, a tax write-off? You know, it's like, you bastards. You know, we're doing all this work. I'm breaking my heart out here. You know, I'm working harder than you could expect. I'm doing things here that are ridiculous. And it's just another day at the office for them. And, you know, Jonathan Cain got offered the job with Journey, and that was the last straw, really. I just went like, fuck it, I'm leaving. You know, I was just ready to get back to England. You know, I'd had enough of the music business. And honestly, I had no intention of going solo. I just wanted to go back to England. My girlfriend was there. I eventually got married. I bought a small, tiny cottage, and I was done. You know, I was really done. I was happy to be back in the arms of Her Majesty. You know, that was it. I was completely done. And then I got the offer to come back and make a solo record, and I wasn't done. But when the Babies broke up, that was it. I didn't care if I ever recorded or sang again.
Yeah, but, you know, I still think, you know, as a performer, because I had a background in performing, and when you go back and you do it, you always say you're done. But for you, you know, you guys, you were right on the precipice of, like, blowing up. And I know you wanted to go back to England, but you had to sit there and think, I don't know, man. I mean, how did you sit there? I mean, how did they lure you back into a solo career if you thought you were done?
Well, I went to New York on the way back. On the last gig of the Babies, I had a knee injury. That was it. We were on tour, and I fell off the riser, and I tore all the cartilage out of my left knee. It was really painful, and I went down. And that was it. They took me to the hospital, and I couldn't walk. We tried the next night to play a gig in Akron, I think, and I came out on crutches, but I couldn't make it through the whole set. I was done. So I went to New York for surgery just before Christmas. And I was always going to go home to England after that anyway. But I'd come through New York, and it was the first time I'd been there without the band. And the A&R guy at Chrysalis, Brendan Burke, took me around some clubs. You know, Webster Hall, Hurrahs, Peppermint Lounge. Showed me some of this stuff. And I got it. You know, when you're in New York with a band, you do the gig, and then you go out to a bar, then you go to bed, then you get up and leave town. I was there for about a week. I spent about 5 days in hospital and maybe 3 days in a borrowed apartment just to get well and wait for my flight back home. But I fell in love with it. I fell in love with New York City. I mean, and when you're there by yourself, you know, John Lennon had just been shot. It's just like there was a huge pall of misery over the place because of Lennon's death. But everything was so truthful. It was in very sharp focus. And the people, I understood them. They were working class mostly, and I'm working class. There was none of that glitz of Hollywood. It was it was me. You know, I understood it all. And it had seasons in Central Park, and it had like the East Village, and it had Greenwich Village and Soho, and it had artists that I admired. And it was a whole different culture. So when I finally got on the plane and went home, that was always in the back of my mind. And after about 5 months in England, I did want to come back, but I wasn't going to come back to LA and do this, you know, the Babies too, or join the Babies again. I was absolutely done with that. But I met Ivan Kroll, who passed away 2 years ago. Very sorry to say. He was working with Iggy Pop, and he'd been with Patti Smith's band as a guitar player. And he was from Czechoslovakia. We used to call him the Bad Czech. And he was a great guy, a beautiful guy, you know, very, very well read. And we both were big fans of art and literature and culture. We were probably the most two cultured guys of our age in the city. You know, me and him went to see Abel Gance's Napoleon at Radio City. He could find some tickets. And we were in the last row at the back of, you know, it was the cheapest tickets. But do you want to go and see Napoleon, Abel Gance, you know, Artaud? You know, it's like, yeah, okay, I'll go. We both had the same tastes. And we hit it off. And he was such a great guy. He bent, you know, I think the thing with Iggy would be very rough for him. And even the thing with Patti Smith, maybe, you know. And he was disgusted. And he wanted to do something else. And we just, you know, we became great friends, which was the most important thing. Two European guys with no real friends in New York City. Do you want to make a band? Do you want to come with me and write these songs? Yeah. And he introduced me to a couple of people, Bruce Brody, the keyboard player, Richie Fleegler, the guitar player. They didn't join the band, but he was a great guy. And the great Frankie LaRocca. And Donny Nossoff came along. It was an East Coast band with two Europeans in it. And we started to write this, you know, all these songs like Wildlife. And it was good, you know. It was really a good time. But sadly, you know, I mean, Frankie passed away about 6-7 years ago. It's a strange time, you know. But it was a wonderful time. But like I said, that's why I came back. I fell in love with New York when I passed through. Yeah.
Now you come back, and when your first solo album, you have a popular song on it, and you know, and I think MTV helps because as I'm of the MTV age, and we would sit in our basement and just watch it, and
myself
from the beginning, and we'd be like, "Holy crap! Whoa! Look at the way these guys are dressed, and look at that." When you started getting that taste in the solo career, how was that for you? That you know, you were probably getting recognized more now because everyone was watching MTV.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. I mean, Neil Giraldo, let's mention Neil, you know, Pat Benatar, Neil Giraldo, the guitar player, he produced that record, produced it very well. And the songs, me and Ivan's songs, all coalesced on this one record. And we made a video for Change. And nobody had videos. MTV came out of left field, and I remember watching the opening credit on a little black and white TV in this crash pad I had, but nobody had videos. It was all like live stuff, and then the bands that were fortunate enough to have a video with a big record company, you know, they would get played. But I had this really great video for Change that was like scripted. Colt Falkenberg shot it. He's very good. He ended up doing the Missing You video. And they had nothing else to play, God bless them. So I was getting like 8 spins a day, if you call a spin, you know, a view. But I mean, and I became really great friends with all of them. They were such lovely people. I mean, me and Nina Blackwood are still in touch, you know. I mean, it's a profound thing. And I mean, all of those people were sweet people. And, you know, J.J. Jackson, you know, what a guy. And, I mean, J.J. used to hang out with the Hells Angels down in the East Village. You know, it was so raucous. Everybody would be like, okay, let's go, you know. And it was great, but it was a different New York. It was very raw. And but I really enjoyed those people, and I enjoyed that time very, very much. But yeah, I did get recognized an enormous amount. I couldn't feed the cat. You know, I couldn't go out and get cat food, but that was all right.
The Change video is great, and you got the journalist outfit, you got the tie and the hat, and for us that was a cool look because we weren't used to that. So the first album does well. So now, after the first album does well, what is the record company expecting from you for the second album? And did you feel a little hesitant towards that because of what happened with the babies?
Yeah, we've done the same thing exactly. We had 8 spins a day on MTV. I was doing all the major TV shows. We were like a force, with this great band. We were doing Solid Gold. Everybody loved us, and the record company just, it was like, it's time to make another record, and it was like, what? We've got this, we're about to go, no, let's have another record. And I got into it with them, and I was desperate to I didn't know I couldn't believe that people could be like that. So I actually bankrolled a record and started recording at the House of Music out in Jersey. And I started working a record that I was producing. And they asked to hear some tapes, like, come on then, let's hear it. And I played them and they hated it. And it was like, well, we're going to find you a producer. And I just said, fuck off. And I went to the airport and went home. But at that point, that's when I really was done. I'd come back and done the solo thing, thinking it was going to be better. And they did exactly the same thing. After living in New York for 2 years, hand to mouth, and really, really paid some serious dues that I shouldn't have had to pay again. And then they blow the second record, the first solo record. It was like, it crushed me, man. I never cared if I ever saw the music business again. I was done. Really, truly done. So
what got you back on the horse? I mean, thank God you did.
I'd met a lawyer in New York at Trax on 72nd Street, and he went to work for a bigger lawyer, Steve Machat, and the first lawyer said, you got to hear John Waite, it's really great, And they got me out of the record deal with Chrysalis. It wasn't easy and it cost a lot. But I got out of the deal. And I went to EMI. And I came to America to sign the contracts. And it was like walking into sunshine. It was like people that really wanted to hear what you thought. They believed in me. They were going to bankroll the record. They were really supportive. Jim Marsler, Gary Gersh. It was just like, wow, is this what it's supposed to be like? It wasn't Chrysalis where you're fighting everybody. They really knew about music, I mean, it was fantastic. And I stayed in America and made the record. I didn't even go home. I came to sign the contracts and stayed for 3 months. It was like, it's great.
Now, Missing You comes out. And as I said in the beginning, that was like in college when you broke up, you put that song on. One guy would go, "Hey, you got the John Waite album?" And you go,
"I put it on myself."
Where did that song come from? Tell me the story behind Missing You.
It was a last minute thing. We'd made the record, great band. We'd made the record, and everybody thought it's a hit. And I kept thinking it's not got that one thing. I loved the fact that everybody loved it, but I'd been there before. It's like. When people are on your side, they're on your side. But when the record doesn't sell, things change pretty quick. I just knew we hadn't got that bombshell, that thing. And I was trying to write different stuff. When David Thorner was mixing the record, I would take off and try and write songs, And this guy I was working with, Chaz Sanford, we'd been writing this song that didn't really pan out. And he was looking for it on a tape. And he hit the stop button at the wrong time, and something else came on that he'd been working on, just an 8-note feel. And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Oh, don't worry about that." I said, "No, That's the kind of thing I play on the bass, and that's how I sang. Why don't you let me have a shot at that? And he put the mic up in the spare room, and I sang Missing You, really, basically. I got the whole first verse and the chorus off the top of my head, second time through. I made the whole thing up. Then I stopped. I was overwhelmed, but I used Every Time I Think of You to get me started, because that was a baby song. And then I came up with it just like out of nowhere, But it was about, the women in my life that were very important, and being a long way from home, and distance and denial. And it was very accessible easily because, that was the truth of my life at that point.
Well, the song just blows up. I mean, as a performer, you must go, holy shit. I mean, it's everywhere. How does that change your career when you have a song that is such a hit? Everybody knows it. People love the videos. The girls in my college were like, "Oh, John Waite's so cute," and he's like, "Oh, John Waite's got." We're like, "John Waite's got nothing on us," and they're like, "No, he's cute and he's a rock star and he's got an accent and you're just a college kid." It was thing, but
they were right, yeah. But it changed my life completely. I mean, I was, like I say, I'd more or less been the lead singer in a band, with the Babies, and Ignition, the first solo album, never really got a shot, so I didn't really have to carry the weight. I mean, I was, I had my toe in the water, but I wasn't. Yeah, I was ballsy. I was. I don't know why I'm saying all that shit. I could go in front of 20,000 people and annihilate them. I knew exactly what I was doing, but being off stage, that's the odd part when you're famous. It isn't doing the performance. That's easy. That's something that organically, that you just have that innate talent for communicating with people on a big scale, or a small scale. It's honesty, really. But I think off stage it got weird. It was like it was like everybody changed. It's the old joke about everybody changed but me, but it was like that. Everybody changed. And, fame is a strange thing. It was, having a medium-sized hit would have been probably better. But having something like Missing You has let me have a career ever since. No matter what I do, people give me the shot. So it's a trade-off, But I didn't really want to be... doing that thing where you're really going for it, and you have to be a certain sort of person, and I just haven't got the time for that. I'd rather be me and Ivan somewhere writing a song, or in some small dive bar in the East Village, getting up and singing with the band, my idea of fame is not this stardom thing, but it's also recognizing who you are and completing the gift. Fame is a gift, recognition is, and part of that deal is to give back to people. It's not cool to not show up. I showed up, but the thing was, I wanted to, when I was done, walk away and spend a month somewhere else quietly. I went back to England a lot. It was like I just wasn't interested in being fabulous.
Now, what was it like? You were finally making money, though. I mean, it seems like you were up and down. I mean, what is that like when you busted your ass and you've been so close, and all of a sudden you're making money and you're being popular?
Well, my deal with Chris didn't exactly let the money roll in. That came later. It came by the next album. I got a huge advance from EMI, and I bought a house in the country, just outside New York, and that was when. That was a really great time. I mean, it was like the dream of having a house in a really great, Pound Ridge, and had a roadie that slept in the basement. It was great, it was very Keith Richards, I suppose. But it was a country retreat. It was a place I could go that was an hour and a quarter outside of Manhattan. And so I would go in, record, or go to the China Club and hang out for the weekend or whatever it's going to be. And then I would go home again. I'd leave, you know. I wasn't really interested in going to some premiere or some special kind of soiree. I just it was pretty rock and roll, you know. I knew who I was. I didn't need to do all that stuff. And I suppose that's what has made it possible for me to have the career I've had. I knew when to go home.
Well, you know, you've had a great solo career to this day, and you've always been recording. How did Bad English come about? Was that just something that you wanted to get back in a band, or what happened?
Well, my manager, Trudy Green, walked me into Epic. She was a very powerful woman, still is, great manager. And she walked me into Epic, and the A&R guy seemed to dismiss my songwriting. He said, yeah, we'd love to have you on the label, but I'm going to help you with the album. I'm going to be there, and maybe, you know, I'm going to play some songs. And I thought, oh, Jesus, you know, really? We're going to go there? You know, all the baby stuff, Missing You, that didn't count. And I wanted to deal with Epic, I really did, because they were fabulous. You know, Paulie Anthony, they had people working there that were the best. And Trudy liked him, and I liked Trudy, and everybody liked everybody else. So it was down to me to sort it out. And I thought, if I had the record deal, I'd signed it, you know. And I thought, well, if I do a band, there'll be 4 or 5 of us, and we'll be invulnerable because they can't really single one of us out, and, you know, it's going to be like a band. And nobody expects me to come back after Missing You with a band. You know, I thought it was clever. And so that's how it happened. That's it. There isn't any great mystery. It was like, you know, the only way through this shit is to sort of be with other players. And, I mean, I might have got the idea from David Bowie, Tin Machine. That happened when I was making Missing You. Tin Machine was his version of him in a band. So I might have been influenced by that. But it was inspired because we sold, you know, over 1 million records, and we had like 5 top 20 singles, and it was the right decision, you know.
How did you formulate them? I mean, how did you pick those guys out? I mean, you knew them. I mean, you knew Jonathan.
There wasn't a lot of choice. I tried to find a guitar player. I went to England and toured the clubs. I tried to get a hold of Johnny Marr from Morris's band, just to sit him down and say, is there anybody that's really young and great? You know, I wasn't trying to get him in the band. But there was nobody around. And in the end, it was like, why don't you call Jonathan Cain, see what he's doing? He's not doing much. And it was like, well, you know, okay, all right. And it was kind of like, yeah. And then Neil showed up, Neil Sean. And then Ricky showed up, Ricky Phillips. And then after about 3 different attempts with Dean Castronovo, young fireball drummer, you know. And that was it. It was pretty organic. You know, it wasn't like, let my manager talk to your manager. It was like, do you want to be in a band? Yeah, okay, let's go. Easy.
So that band does good. And then, you know, you go back to just solo. What is it like? Because you've gone from band to solo. Is there ever I could guess say an insecurity because now it's you solo. It's not with that band. I mean, how as an artist does it change your writing or anything?
Well, I think the album I made after that was Temple Bar. And Temple Bar was written about New York City as I was living in New York City. And I had all the confidence and all the clarity of being solo. I was playing with the greatest musicians you can imagine. I mean, New York's finest rock players. Jeff Gollum on the guitar, Shane Fontaine, Tony Beard on drums. It was like, motherfucker. They were so good. And they all were in sympathy with where I was taking it. And Temple Bar was probably the best record I've made. I mean, it really was. It was off the hook. It just like so. You know, after being in a band for 3 years or whatever it was, and having to compromise and sort of go halfway and be super patient and bite your tongue and, you know, just being a righteous guy. You know, when you're in a band, you're supposed to be the best guy you can be with everybody, you know? And it was a relief to be back in New York City, and it was a relief to be solo. And I suddenly knew exactly what I wanted to say. It was a song. Those songs were written when I was about 38. And it's about spiritual yearning, the city itself, New York City, stardom, and for whatever that's worth, and God. You know, it's all in one album. It's a powerful record. Temple Bar is probably my favorite record, yeah.
Now, how did your fans act to it? I mean, because fans, you know, there's going to be people that think of you from Missing You. There's going to be people that probably never knew you were into Babies. You know, that's how people, you know, especially nowadays. How did your diehard fans react to Temple Bar? And the people, not your diehard fans, but the people who were your fringe fans, did they really enjoy it?
It was going to be it's another sad story here, but the guy who owned the record company with the guy that run Chrysalis, and he folded the record company 2 months after the single came out. But it was just one of those things, you know, you have to roll with the punches. But it was hugely well received. We had a song in True Romance, the Tony Scott movie, In Dreams it was called, and we shot a video with him in Monument Valley, Tony, in a helicopter, which is fantastic. And another video for How Did I Get By Without You in a snowstorm in New York City. And we've got on the charts, you know, the radio charts, like in the top 10, then we're number 2. It was all set to go, and the record company folded. But the fans got hold of it, and it sold well. You know, it sold well. And it just didn't have a long life. It was a real shame. But I managed to buy it back a few years ago, so I own it. So I can live with anything. I own that piece of work. You know, it's like, if I didn't own it, I would there'd be some bad shit going down, you know. I mean, it was my masterpiece, really, if I can say that without smiling. And I own it, and I'm proud of it. But Temple Bar was... that was a watershed moment. I became my own man again. You know, when you're in a band, you really spread yourself thin. You really do. There's people pulling and pushing, and there's all sorts of mind games going on. It's bands, you know, people at their worst. But when you're solo, you're surrounded by people that you choose to be with, that are your friends, really. You know, it's a different dynamic completely.
Now, you also play with Ringo's All-Star Band. And now, I saw Ringo's band in L.A. when the Universal Amphitheater was still open. And it was him with Ian Hunter, Greg Lake. It was, you know... And when I went to see the concert, because my friend hosted a talk show with Ringo on the Playboy Channel years ago. And so it was great. We had great seats. And when you went to see that, it just looked like everybody was just having fun. What was it like playing? Because it's the ultimate supergroup when you play with Ringo.
You can't go any higher. You know, the guy's an absolutely unbelievably gifted drummer, and he was the man on the scene, and he was number 1 in the world. He's probably the most popular Beatle. You know, the most accessible Beatle. He's a drummer. Probably the most, you know, acceptable, you know, but when he got behind the kit, he was a funny guy, you know, very charming guy, and he's seen everything. So, everybody's up there playing the hits, and then they get to play behind Ringo. You know, it's 2 hours of, it's intense, you know. You got, you know, different musicians want different things for their songs, and you got to change styles and all that kind of thing, you know. It's, you know, I want it this way. And it's like, you can only play it one way, you know. It's me. But I really hope I hope they were happy with it. I did the best I could to really bring some solid bottom end to the band, you know, and carry the weight. You know, I really did. I tried to deliver every night and pay attention.
Now, when we get a vaccine, well, we have a vaccine. When everyone can get it, you guys will get touring again. How did you put your band together now? I know the one Tim, I believe it's one guy's from Philly.
Yeah, Tim Hogan.
Yeah. How did you get that band together? And how long have you guys been a group, bit together?
Well, Tim Hogan's been like the constant for like 12 years, I think. I met him in Bonds, in Carmine's, in Times Square, in the bar. He was touring with an act, and we hit it off. It was snowing outside, and he offered me his overcoat. I didn't have a coat, and I can't remember how. Oh yeah, I can remember his first gig. Everything went wrong. We were opening for Heart in some amphitheater, and everything blew up. The sound man, I think, was trying to mess with us. Everything was feeding back, and the drums fell off the riser, and the guitar cut out. My mic went off completely. I threw my mic into the audience, and the only thing that was still playing was the bass. So he passed the audition, as we say. And me and Tim, man, he's like my brother. We've been through thick and thin. But he talked me into coming back on the road, really. I was kind of like, I was living in Nashville, and I was writing all these songs, and tell you the truth, my father passed away, and I had the blues. I just like really felt terrible. I just felt awful, and I had too much time on my hands to think about everything, and so we hit the road, and Tim was at the wheel. He would feel the gigs from the agents and then say, "Do you want to do this one?" I go like, "Okay, yeah," and we made an album, a live album called In Real Time. And it just snowballed after that. We just stayed on the road. We started playing unplugged dates. We started playing full band dates. We played festivals. We played all over the world, Went to Holland, went to Germany, went to Britain, played my hometown. I did a lot of work, man, and always on the road in America. But with Tim was like the conduit, he's the guy that made it work.
Now, I saw a video. It was on. I think it was on your Facebook page. Someone posted it. It's a acoustic version of Change. How do you change? And it sounds different. How do you change it up? I mean, do you plan it? I mean, how do you plan to do an acoustic version? And how do you sit there and make sure that it does the song justice?
Jesus, I just pick up the guitar and start singing. It isn't like, let's do it this way. You just play it acoustic. I mean, you can't go out there and scream and shout and play you can. But, I guess, when you're playing the acoustic guitar, you play to it. You don't try and overpower it. You can't. It's the acoustic guitar. It's going to be amped up and coming out the speakers in the front, and it's in your monitors. But you can hear the guitar acoustically as you're playing. So you sing to the guitar. You can't just do like a rock version of that with the acoustic guitar. You have to somehow. But this is back to my Celtic kind of like folk roots. I mean, it's effortless to me. I was in the studio a couple of weeks ago with Shane Fontaine, and I've got a song called New York City Girl, and I wanted to do an acoustic version, And he said, "Let's do it as a waltz." I went like, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, it'd be great." So he counts it off, and we both play the whole thing in 3/4 without even thinking about what 3/4 means. I mean, you've either got it or you don't. I mean, I had to reimagine the song as I was singing it, but it was effortless. It was in 3/4, so what? It could have been in 6/8 and 7/4, and I could have still have sung it in those time signatures, because that's what I am. I don't rehearse it. I don't let me just get what 3/4 is again. It's like, give me it, let's go. And I think the first take is the one we kept. It was so honest, we just kept it. But I mean, the acoustic to me is like, the key to the universe. It's like everything.
Now, have you thought of, and a lot of bands are doing this, of playing everyone's playing with the Prague Orchestra. Have you ever thought of doing something like that? Because I think your song would sound wonderful to that.
Well, we did it once in Holland. I got invited to go to Holland and play with an orchestra for one song. I think we did Isn't It Time or something. I think it Isn't It Time. And there was like half an hour rehearsal, and there's all these different bands on this huge arena, you know. They come out, and it's all wrong. It's out of time, and then everybody gets it together, and we do Isn't It Time? Place goes absolutely bananas, and I walk off. And it's an interesting thing to do, but finding one, you know, where the downbeat is all the time, you need a really good conductor, and you need charts that really are thought out, and you need an orchestra that can really handle it. But I suppose it was good. You know, everybody's got this idea about making an album of their favorite songs in some very strange settings, you know, like production values. I mean, Dylan made Triplicate, you know, and he's done all these wonderful Broadway songs and Sinatra songs. Wow. I mean, great. But, you know, Iggy Pop had this album called A Pre. Came out a few years ago. A friend of mine produced it. And 3/4 of the album, it's in French. There's Iggy singing La Vie en Rose and stuff, you know, in French. Because the guy that produced it married a French woman. And I suppose Iggy knows some French. Obviously, he's a man of the world. But she probably helped him out. But it's wonderful to hear Iggy sing in French. You know, it's like when you hear Patti Smith talk. And Patti Smith is like from Jersey. And God bless her, she sounds totally like Jersey, you know. She's got a really broad accent. And everything she says, it's like pulling Excalibur out of the stone, you know. And then she comes out with this accent, you know. It's wonderful. So in answer to your question, I'd love to do an album that was like that, but the songs would have to be spectacular. You know?
Well, one final question. What's the future for John Waite? You know, you have a new album you're working on. Where would you like to see yourself in a year from now? Seeing that we all got vaccinated and everyone can actually get back to normal.
Vaccinated, alive. I'd like to go visit my mom in England. She turns 96 in February. She got vaccinated last week. I don't know. Obviously, I'd like to be back on the road. I'd like to make a really good album. I mean, this album is like 4 new songs. There's a few old chestnuts done acoustically that I love, and a new song, a Dylan song that's very, very. It's a challenge, but I think I pulled it off. It's a grab bag of what I've got, what I've written, acoustic, electric, and it's suitable for the times. It's something you could sit down with, and it isn't the same thing over and over again. It's like something that's going to take you somewhere, and I hope it's a good ride. But I'd love to just keep making good work. You know, the thing about being successful, that idea changes hands so much now. It's like everybody's got a PR person. Everybody's on, like, you know, America's Got a Voice, whatever, and, you know, talent around. And it's like, I'm not interested, you know. I'd like to just keep playing gigs that are like 500 seats to 1,000. Do the odd festival because I can. You know, knock it out of the park. My voice is still really in shape. I don't know why, but there it is. But I just like to do work that isn't like the work I've done, but it's like an extension of where I've been. I don't want to cheat people. I don't want to do it for the money. I don't want to be bullshit. You know, I just want to be an artist and get through the rest of my life. That's what I want to do. I mean, I know it sounds a little like, you know, but it's the truth. Fuck it.
Well, that's awesome, man. I want to thank you, John, for coming on. I went on your Facebook page and I sent someone a message, and I've been trying to get you on for like a year or two, and it's always it's hard to connect sometimes because on your website there's one address. But I'm glad this worked out. And people, his website is johnwaiteworldwide.com. It's a great website. You can find all his music about him. He talks about different stuff he's written. So people, check that out. Go buy some John Waite albums. Go through his, the page, buy them. Tonight, listen to Missing You. If you're sitting there and your girlfriend dumped you over the pandemic, or your wife, listen to Missing You. It'll probably make you feel better because you're not the only one getting dumped. And so, people, check out John Waite. Go to my website, coopertalk.net. You can find over 830 episodes. Email me, Cooper, at coopertalk.net. Twitter, @CooperTalk. Instagram, @CooperTalk1. Remember, I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guests. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you guys next time.